Hey, it's Lana, owner of L7 Graphics, and thanks for coming to my channel. Today I'm going to be making or designing a wooden picture frame using the Easy Peel hard surface paper. This paper comes in 11 by 17 sheets. 50 sheets cost $50, and I ordered it from Coleman and Company. There are instructions inside the package, but these instructions tells you how to use this paper with a heat press or an oven, but they're very general. You will have to play around until you get your settings correct. When I am doing demonstrations, I don't like to use a whole sheet of paper, so I'm going to cut this in half down to 8.5 by 11 sheets. That way I have more to play around with when I'm using different substrates, and I do recommend you doing the same thing. On the back of this paper, the writing is in like a light blue color, just so you know, for the hard surface paper. All right. And loading this paper into my 8432 DigitalHeat FX white toner transfer printer. It's going to be face up. All paper for this particular printer is going to be face up when it is loaded into the printer. And of course, I need to load the image that I chose to use for this picture frame into the optimizer, which is the RIP software by DigitalHeat FX. And as I mentioned earlier, I really don't like to waste paper, especially when I'm doing demonstrations. So I'm going to make this image small, maybe about 3.5 inches or so. And I'm going to make multiple of these images on this one page. This is just in case I mess up the first one. I have more, or I can use this image on a different hard surface substrate if I want to do that later. Make sure that when you're in this software, you change your paper to the hard surface paper, and make sure that the Q on the top left also reflects that. I did change mine before we got to this point. There we go. My 4 images coming out on my 8.5 by 11 sheet. And of course, make my way to my paper cutter. Be sure to cut closer to the image. Don't make the mistake that I did. And for all intents and purposes, you will see that a little bit later in this video as to why I said that. But cut as close to the image as possible before you press it. So got 4 images, thankfully. I'm going to do 2 of them for this video. All right, inexpensive wooden frame from Dollar Tree, $1.25 plus tax. Inflation is really something, but hey, I use cheap things to do demos. And of course, in this video, I'm just applying the image to the wood before I press it. Don't follow my time, temp, and pressure instructions. They're not going to work for your equipment unless you have the identical setup as me. And I always use my silicone finishing sheet whenever I press something now. It just works a lot better with the texture of that particular pressing sheet. Always let it cool completely. And this is why I said you want to cut closer to the image. So my wood is cool. I'm going to rip this kind of fast because I already know there's going to be an issue. I could already tell. But as you can see, the paper didn't come all the way up. And that's because I used way too much pressure. It was heavy, but it was too much. And I didn't cut close enough to the image. So this is what I got. So I'm going to put some Goo Gone on that and let it sit to the side and mess with that later. So here's the second one. And I peeled a little bit slower on this one. It was completely cooled. But as you can see, there are a couple of pieces of the paper that stuck to the wood because it was still a little bit too much pressure. So I'll work with that next time. But the good thing is the image is still intact and I can just use my handy dandy tool to scrape away some of the paper. I do want to clean this up completely, so I'm going to do that off camera. I don't want to bore you with that. And then I'll be back with the wood without all the paper that's still kind of stuck on there. You see the residue there. I'll get that all cleaned up and then we will proceed. All right, and here we go. I got as much of that paper off as I could using that tool. I didn't have to add anything to it. I just scraped it off. Finished it off with some Mod Podge because that is my favorite thing to do, it seems like. But before I go, I want to just tell you a few things. the time, temperature, and pressure settings that I used is not going to be the same for you. Even though there are instructions in the paper, they don't really know what equipment you're using, so it's really general. Trial and error is normal. Use the cheapest products you can and cut the paper in half, and use the smaller sheets to play with different settings until you perfect your craft. It is absolutely okay to make mistakes. Clearly, I was bold enough to show you mine. If you have any questions or concerns about the RIP software, how to add or change paper settings, or want to see specific videos using the 1-step, 2-step, or hard surface paper by DigitalHeat FX on any substrates, let me know. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Visit me on Instagram and Facebook at L7Graphics. Thank you.